Welcome back to Squawking Dead. It's been a while. Have you missed us? We haven't seen any of you guys since Walker Stalker.
This is true.
That's been a little while, hasn't it?
It's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So how you feeling, Carol?
I'm good. Hanging in there. Walker Stalker was a cool experience. Can't say it wasn't. It was awesome to do the photo ops, the panels, for sure.
Yeah. You did quite a few too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I did like 3 of the booths that were kind of meet and greets with Shane, with Abraham, with Shane, Abraham. Who am I missing? Oh, and we had a photo op with Daryl. So we did that too. It was a good time. I had
Which is
fun.
kind of like the main event too.
Yeah. It was fun. It was awesome. I definitely would do it again. I would recommend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you know what? If we do Walker Stalker in New Jersey, that's definitely what we're going to do. Carol got to talk to a lot of people while Dave remained shy. So
it was a fun time. I enjoyed it a lot. I would do it again, hands down.
Yeah. It was just a really good feeling to kind of see everybody kind of really, all the actors really start to embrace everybody and, you know, be really open and giving with their time and really taking the time to kind of be with the fans. It's kind of a really great experience. It brings everybody kind of down to earth. So
Definitely.
yeah, even just to be there, and it's not terribly expensive to go. It's like half the price of the cheapest theme park I can think of right now. So I mean, I think it's just a win-win. You get to go to these panels. You get to experience what it's like to kind of be in their orbit.
Yeah, definitely.
How could you go wrong? How could you go wrong? You can meet Squawking Dead. You know, it's really important.
There you have it.
Yeah, there's just nothing to argue with.
There you go.
There's tons of dead air. That's good too.
I just thought it was an awesome experience to meet everybody. I thought it was so cool. And everybody was really friendly.
Yeah.
Like there was no sort of, I didn't feel like anybody was snobby or aloof or difficult, like fans or anybody, any of the actors. I thought that everybody was really gracious and just fun to be with. So hands down, no complaints.
And your friend was out there too with you.
Yeah, it was me and her hitting the stuff, you know, like we kind of went in with the mission and we figured like, okay, if we're going to be here this weekend, we're going to hit everything at our disposal. We even went to the after party like on Saturday night. And even that was fun too.
Oh yeah. It was at that Poseidon it was kind of like a Halloween party almost, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was because it was pretty much like Halloween or just about almost Halloween. So yeah, it was like a lot of people in costumes and things like that. So it was cool to just kind of like people watch and all that, but it was fun. So, you know, they run a tight ship and, you know, it's a good time.
Yeah. And it was kind of amazing to kind of be there. We met Nashville Negan. We met, I didn't really get to talk to David, the everyday Grimes. But it was kind of it was really good to kind of be in their orbit and I met Shauna several times, kind of bumped into him, talked to him, hung out with him a little bit. Kind of wished I had more time to Shauna, meaning Nashville Negan. Kind of wish I did have a little bit more time to spend with him. And, you know, and that last Sunday was kind of the worst because that would have been the day to do it too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay. So anyway, what we're going to do tonight is our mission is to really go over the Obliged today because to kind of make up for last week, but also not to go over, we didn't want to go too far over like the limit. I mean, nobody wants to listen to like a 2.5, 3 hour stream. And even to that point, we're going to try to be as condensed as possible to kind of cover as much as we can. I mean, hitting on some good points, rattling off our feelings. I think we can get it done. And I'm looking forward to your reactions. And so where would you like to get started? Because even the Obliged episode 4 was just really powerful. It got to the heart of some of the arguments that people have been having online. It's like the whole Maggie Dixon camp versus like the Rick idealistic camp, and people go head to head. You know, it's like Negan versus the Negan philosophy versus the Rick philosophy versus killing Negan versus not killing Negan. And I kind of know where you stand, but I think I wanted to give you the floor to kind of lay out this might be a better question. Lay out what you felt before going into this episode, and maybe if things had changed as a result of watching this episode. So why don't you give it a go?
I don't think that anything necessarily changed for me. I basically was kind of watching it and curious to see how it was all going to unfurl because kind of knew like it was going to get to this point eventually, like everything was going to come to a head because of these conflicting viewpoints and what have you. And you kind of understand where people are coming from because it's justifiable, like in terms of, you know, their feelings, it makes sense. But, you know, I don't know if I can necessarily say that any particular person's viewpoint is right or wrong. It's just, I think that I understand where they're coming from. And eventually all of it was going to come to a head. and obviously like it all resolves and subsides in its own way. But I mean, together hunky dory, like easily, like it's not going to be that way, and it's understandable. Doesn't necessarily mean that you exact revenge on everybody, but I think it makes sense. It's believable. It's a believable conflict. So I was just curious to see how it was all going to unravel in this episode leading up to what we knew was going to be like Rick's departure. So I was curious to see how it was all going to start to come together. But so I think this is a really good setup episode, but it was it was like marching us towards like, okay, the kind of a sort of culmination. So I mean, I thought it was good. I thought it was a quality episode. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you even say that like maybe the result of this episode is that you kind of understand the other side? Like, because I know you were kind of in the camp of, I mean, there's a part of you that obviously wants Negan to stick around, but you were also kind of in the Maggie, I
understand. I understand where they're coming from. Definitely. I understand like where their anger is coming from for sure. I just don't think it's as easy as like, I'm going to go, kill Negan and that's going to solve everything. But I understand obviously where they're coming from. I'm just biased because I know of Negan's character from like a bigger page, and it's not this sort of like one-dimensional sort of asshole that's just sort of like interested in like killing for the sake of killing and relishing it. There's like a method to his madness.
Right.
And so for me, it's like, I understand where Maggie was coming from. I understand where Maggie and like Daryl's anger is coming from. I do think that, Rick's view is a little idealistic and all of that. Like, I get it. It's just the reality of it.
Right. But you do also get a little bit of that Negan flavor.
We do get some of that in conversations.
Yeah, exactly. So, which is kind of a good thing because at that point, at some point, we kind of have to. Well, what the show's been kind of doing, like from the beginning of the season, is to really lay out everybody's feelings and philosophies and all that stuff. And the end result really is what I was kind of referring to as the pendulum effect, where they were slowly swinging the pendulum widely to give you pieces of the extremes. And occasionally you get some people that are in the middle, kind of like Carol, where she can go either way. She's giving it a try, but she has her feelings. And they really do a good job of laying out, like even me, I was fully in Rick's camp, but there was that part of me that like, obviously when Oceanside was killing Rot, I was kind of like, there's nothing to say. You can't say anything against that. As much as you want to tell them to stay the course, you can't, which is kind of exemplary. Like, it's hard to move a cameo. I'll tell you that much. We are stubborn.
There you go.
We're unyielding, very forgiving, but unwielding. Just unyielding, just like an immovable object. It's and for them to be able to do that means that they laid it out really well.
Yeah, I mean, they did. It was very compelling. Very compelling.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's go through the episode because, I mean, we do start off with Michelle's morning routine and it just goes back and forth. And you do see some of the things with, her kind of letting off some of that PTSD warrior kind of thing.
In the evenings after like everybody's asleep. That's when she goes out, lets out her aggression, and basically exercises that warrior in her that she like doesn't really utilize in her regular day to day.
Right. And it's not as if she's not busy, trying to take care of some stuff, making the the charter or whatever she's going to call it at the end of the day. She's playing with the kids, she's managing the community, et cetera, but like she still can't sleep, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
But in this montage, you see her go back and forth, and then there's that one scene though, and I kind of want to talk to you about that because I wasn't 100% certain until the end maybe what it was, but you saw that man that was hanging and he had his hands tied. Okay, when you watched the second time, because as everybody knows, we do this to get notes to kind of see what we want to talk about. But even when I watched it the second time, actually maybe even more so, like you see this guy, he's hanging, his hands are tied, etc. And I was trying to think to myself, what does this mean? Like, where is this coming from? This wasn't from Alexandria. And then I have like a clue, an inkling of what that is, and we could even cover it now, but I just didn't, it seemed out of place. It seemed like it didn't belong. Did you think about that one, Fred?
I thought about it, but I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't make the connection, to be honest with you.
Well, let me see if I really condensed my notes, so because I was just like
I can't quite figure out like what that relates to. I mean, I'm sure it has to mean something, but I'm just not entirely sure what that would mean. And I don't know if we're ever going to get like any sort of like callback to it at this point.
Yeah, it was the whole thing with the saviors. That's what really, I think. Okay, so I remember what it was. At the end of the episodes when the saviors kind of come out and some of them have weapons, it makes me think that some of the saviors may have gone close to Alexandria and may have gotten some weapons from, like, I know that they mentioned when the saviors come back back after walking off the site. That Jed mentions that Alden was surprisingly easy to give up his weapon. So he mentions that. Yeah. So I was thinking that maybe some of them went to around where Alexandria was, and maybe they got it from somebody on site. It's nobody that I could recognize, by the way.
No.
Right. So it just seemed a little weird and out of place, and it was close to Alexandria. So who could it be? That sort of thing. So
yeah, I thought the same thing, but then we never got any resolution on it.
Yeah, and it's kind of like one of those things where you just can't write it off as, oh, that's just what happens. No. Even in one of the montage scenes, it looks like Michonne handles any sort of friction. We don't get any hints of any friction at Alexandria. So I just thought that was really weird. It's a good thing to stick a pin in because you wouldn't just have that scene to have it. So.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's for a reason, but what that reason is, I'm at a loss.
Yeah. All right. So I'm glad we're on the same page with that because I just thought it was weird. It was out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was weird. I wasn't sure what to make of it.
Yeah. And you notice this is in one of these scenes, it's the first scene where you get a bat reference and it makes Michonne think about Negan, obviously. You could just tell.
Yeah,
and then,
definitely.
And you see other references too. And you see one near the end after she meets up with Negan with the book. That she, And it really does get you thinking. And we'll get to that scene too because it's very important. And I think it does kind of shape what's going to happen episode 6, 7, and 8. I think. I'm wondering actually too because, with the whole time jump that's going to be occurring after episode 5, which we'll try to cover tomorrow, which was called... What Comes After? Yeah. So, we still have what's in the air when it comes to Michonne and Negan's conversation. Yeah, it's I don't know if it gets resolved. I don't know if, you know what I mean? You drop it out there and then we have to assume that it's sort of between this and Rick leaving the show, it kind of leaves things a little open to interpretation. It's kind of like, why would you have that scene and have her drama going through all that stuff just to kind of not have it stick with her in some way?
Right.
So I wonder about that.
I don't know.
Yeah. So all in all, we start off the season with, we start off the show after this montage thing with Maggie just returning from that Oceanside killing, really, essentially. And and we kind of talked about this when we talked about sneak peeks. She's going out with Diane.
Right.
I think she's from the Kingdom, right?
Yeah, she was originally from the Kingdom.
Okay, because she's stuck around the hilltop kind of ever thereafter, if I remember right.
Yeah, she's kind of like just been at the hilltop because she was like kind of stationed at the hilltop during the war. It looks like she just stayed there.
Yeah, she's stuck around. And so they're gearing up, and you get this conversation with Tom Paine, Jesus, and it's kind of interesting because it really hits the middle. It really hits the message that some of these people, like even Jerry, in his own funny way, have been trying to tell people, like, this is what happens. This is what's going on. You're trying to do what Rick did at the end of season 8, basically sparing Negan. You decided, you're trying to decide for the rest of us. And I'm wondering, I kind of want to get, when you heard that, did you feel anything different than you do now in terms of like, do you happen to agree with that kind of logic? You know what I mean? That, decide, does it do two wrongs make a right, basically? It essentially comes down to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Jesus' point is warranted, which is like, Rick, maybe she wasn't the one to make that call, but now she's not the one to make that call either. I mean, who is the one to make that call? I don't think that that's been properly established. And that's something that I think Michonne's trying to work out with her charter in terms of like some sort of system of laws and governing and things like that to just sort of kind of start to create some sort of system again for how they handle situations like this. But, for Maggie to just kind of take it into her own hands, it's just more, vigilante justice, really.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And like between you, me, and the wall and the internet, I mean, I hear a lot of people saying that even though it would be considered kind of like an overreach almost, people still kind of say, she's justified, he's got to go. He's kind of an asshole. I mean, a lot of people miss Glenn, all that stuff. And I get all that. But I mean, the more people kind of talk out loud, like speak up, like Jerry and Jesus and anybody that starts with a J, really, apparently, they kind of make sense. And it's kind of like, as much as you want to not say anything and as much as Rick's rules aren't the only rules, I mean, it's not even about rules anymore. It's kind of like, well, just because he did that doesn't mean you get to do that, And it kind of goes back to even the first episode of the season where Michonne, by the way, I think I fixed some of the performance issues. It actually happened to be Facebook and Chrome.
Ah, okay.
But yeah, I mean, the more Michonne kind of says it from the onset, and in the context of even like her congratulating Maggie on her election. So that's kind of weird. You go from Maggie's election to her hanging Gregory. and in the same breath of congratulating her, take a few steps. Carol and Maggie walk off a little bit, and Michonne's looking at the Constitution, or it was the Constitution, and she gets this idea, and one person goes one way, and the other one kind of goes a dark way. So it's just interesting to see how like they kind of go opposite directions. So. But yeah. And like the biggest way you could kind of see how far Maggie's gone is that like you go from the beginning of the season where she's like, I've read Georgie's letter twice already. I just wanted to read it again, to like, Jesus going, hey, I've got a new letter from Georgie. Oh, I'll read it when I get back. Meaning,
right.
I got, it's not interesting to me anymore. So it's kind of like, I've got one thing on my mind. So yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. So I want you to talk to me about Eugene and Rick. There's some stuff going on here. Like they're pointing some things out between the two, and it's something that we kind of talked about in season 8, like how of course kind of Eugene went over to Negan because he was kind of underutilized and underappreciated, and he kind of dicked the crew around a little bit, but
I think he definitely has gotten some appreciation now in terms of like giving Rick insight in terms of how long the bridge can remain standing, the herds that are coming, that sort of thing. Like he definitely is giving Rick like that insight that other people can't offer him, which is awesome for him.
Yeah. Episode by episode, he's kind of been really, really productive. He's reporting with Rick, giving him updates, trying to stay ahead of the levies and all that stuff. But like, there's this knowing scene between the two that like, Eugene's apologizing basically. And
that he couldn't do more.
Yeah. And then, but even more than that, he's kind of like, thank you for, taking another chance on me. It's like, he kind of spells it out. He's kind of like looking awkward. And he's like, after you taking a chance on me, I kind of failed you again. And then like Rick kind of puts his hand on his shoulder and he says, you've done a lot, I forget what exactly he said, but he kind of just exemplified second chances. Like Rick could have been a dick to him, but he's seen how much Eugene's put in. Just to talk on that scene a little more, like what we're talking about in season 8 was we didn't actually blame Eugene, where everybody was kind of sending Josh McDermott death threats and kicking him off social media even more, as if he wasn't already kind of in the black, and people kind of bad mouthing and stuff like that. We kind of just were like, okay, no, this all kind of makes sense. Like, even though Eugene was kind of a Weasley dude, it's kind of like, it's not as if that the gang kind of went out of their way to kind of make him feel welcome, as if welcoming people wasn't the first thing on their mind. But what we kind of realize is that, where else is Eugene going to go, right? So yeah, of course he was going to go to Negan. And not only that, Negan kind of appreciated him. She kind of treated him as an equal. And so what else was he going to do? So yeah, so when you see the scene with Rick, it's kind of like, well, it kind of culminates in a sort of like where, it culminates in the scene where, you have this moment where there's acceptance, the second chances, accepting, and it kind of goes to what's going on in the season too. Arat doesn't get second chances, but Alden kind of does, and even then some. He belongs to kind of Hilltop. Oh, there you are. Hey. Yeah, so I'm just going to keep going. Yeah, I mean, a ton of people, like even Anne. I mean, there's a ton of people that get second chances for some reason. And how do you decide? The one thing that I kind of wanted to talk about also with Carol was the whole thing with Eugene calling the two herds that were kind of in the vicinity but not intersecting. He called them Cordelia and Tybalt, making a specific note that they were Shakespearean characters. And of course, I know that Cordelia is from King Lear and Tybalt was from Romeo and Juliet. But of course, it's been a long time since high school. And after looking into it, when you look into the characters of Cordelia and Tybalt, Cordelia is like King Lear's daughter. She chooses principle over what was expected of her, like marrying and taking, dowry and all that stuff. And one of the things is Cordelia doesn't reappear in the play even until the closing stages of the play, when she returns to Britain to rescue her father from the madness and the cruel neglect that basically that her older sisters dealt him. So in a moving reconciliation scene, Lear admits he was wrong to treat Cordelia as he did, and there's like a reconciliation. But Tybalt from Romeo and Juliet, he's a Capulet, and he basically starts shit with the Montagues and crashes their ball. and basically he persists. He doesn't rest until he has his fight with them. And the basic gist of these two characters in Shakespeare is that one is about principle, that Cordelia is about principle. And rather than fighting with her father, she kind of leaves him and doesn't really reappear until the end of the play, where, she's basically picking up the pieces that basically of his other daughters trying to make him go mad. And, they reconcile, and she takes care of him. Tybalt from Romeo and Juliet, he's basically a hothead. I mean, he's strategic, he's smart, and he knows when not to lose his cool, but he doesn't rest until he is satisfied, basically. And so he doesn't let it go. And so these characters are kind of a lot like, Rick and Maggie. Cordelia is kind of like the Rick. He just does these things on principle. And it may even be kind of like a wider arc of how Rick might come back to the show. Like he sets the stage on principle and then he disappears.
Okay.
And then he comes back at the end of the play. And then Tybalt is kind of like the Maggie, where he bides his time. He waits until the right moment, but he doesn't let it go, and he strikes. He can hold his anger to achieve greater ends. So he has caution. But what ends up happening is Tybalt is eventually killed by Romeo for killing his friend Mercutio.
Right.
So, who fought in his name, of course, because Romeo didn't want to fight him. Which is kind of interesting, because does that really tell you where Maggie is going? Because while we were so distracted by Rick in the last episode, the episode last Sunday, only a few people started talking about Maggie. Like I only started talking about Maggie like today, yesterday, and stuff like that with other people, and we were kind of going on about like what was going to happen to her. And my gut instinct, and maybe you're with me on this one, is that she takes up Georgie's offer and does go with her.
That's my thought.
Okay. I had a feeling you and me would be on the same page with this, but with this Tybalt reference, though, it's starting to make me think a little bit differently, because sometimes when people take these kinds of poetic licenses, it kind of gives you a roadmap. So now I'm kind of wondering if like she gets there's like some sort of backlash, because there's two reasons, and one of them happens to be relevant to this episode. Is that one, we don't really know as of the last episode, with Rick leaving the show, and the one we're covering now, the aftermath of the Savior's encounter at the bridge camp. We do know, and we'll cover it in the next episode, but we do know that like people die.
Right.
And you see some of those fresh people in the last episode, but
right.
And what's good about covering both of these episodes in the same week is that these two episodes happen within a matter of like under an hour, in the span of like under an hour. Well, I mean, aside from the beginning of this episode, but like some of the main things.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know, something I thought of. I mean, when you say things like, "Oh, Tybalt and Cordelia," of course Dave's going to hit the Quora and like research that shit. So,
yeah, no. I mean, it's understandable. I mean, you have to wonder where it comes from.
Yeah, like why those names, right? So like, oh, well, there we go. We're going to do this. I mean, the crows thing keeps coming up too, and that's really interesting. And I love that was accented a little bit, like in Fear the Walking Dead, with the grackle bird at the beginning of that episode with Strand and John Dory, and how they're migratory patterns and they're not afraid and blah blah blah. So like, I feel like I'm not saying that's a continuation, but it does kind of, the two worlds are experiencing wildlife changes, like AKA alligator not being afraid of humans. So yeah, stuff like that. So anyway, but yeah, Rick and Carol. Carol's leaving for the kingdom.
Yep.
In this one.
Yep.
And it's a pretty damn emotional scene, like both literally and like in the acting realm. Like, I mean, obviously like we're getting hit hard, but like these two actors are kind of like, there's a little ad lib in there.
You think so?
Oh, for sure. Like, dude, he's like, he can't help himself from like, wiping his eyes away. There's these like eyes were watery.
Yeah. No, definitely.
And like the scene doesn't really even call for it as much. You know what I mean?
No,
like
you're right.
You could see him be like pissed off even, but not like
tearful.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I mean, even that, by the way, they talked about on Talking Dead. It was like when he said, I don't know if it was Talking Dead, it might have been somewhere else, but like he basically ad-libbed that. You remember when he says basically get out of here to her, like get going? That's where
Yeah.
That was totally ad-libbed, and they kept it in there.
Oh, okay.
Like get out of here.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the one takeaway from that scene is basically, Rick's basically, the saviors are running off. That's most of the workforce.
Right.
Can't make them stay, and
Mhm.
Carol's do is, she's got shit to do.
Yeah, yeah. No,
And
it's like fighting a losing battle.
yeah, and he's trying. He's certainly
Yeah, I mean,
trying.
he's trying. He's trying his best.
Yeah. Well, he's trying to fight a losing battle. You see this throughout the episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, Carol gives him the best advice in the world. She's like, it's kind of like the equivalent of if you love someone, set them free.
Mm-hmm.
You got to trust that, if they have a brain in their head, they're going to come back to you.
Right, right.
So and what's good about that is that she does reference what we talked about. I think also, I'm not sure, but she, Carol did the same thing. She made mistakes, and Rick banished her, and she needed to decide if she could put the needs of the group over her. Well, yeah, I mean, and it's kind of prescient too, but like the needs of the group, like of the collective, over her own opinions and ideas, because what she was doing was going above and beyond without consulting everybody.
Right.
And like it was Carol's law, right?
Right.
Carol Tatership.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah. So
she knew best.
What's interesting about that is that the big debate that we're having between who gets to save Negan and who gets to kill Negan, Carol did the same thing. Carol made decisions without consulting anybody. So she, above anybody else, knows exactly what's going on here. And it's the very same thing that she had to kind of let go of seasons ago to kind of be a part of the community. And I hadn't thought of that until just now.
No, but that is true. That's a good point. I mean, she did try to be like judge, juror, and executioner.
Faux show.
When they were at the prison. Yeah, she tried to do that and it didn't work out. So she knows already like what happens when you start going down that route.
Yeah, of just doing whatever she wanted. Yeah, it could be right, it could be wrong, but like at the end of the day, you gotta, it's got to be good for everybody.
Right.
I mean, sometimes you got to pull out a dictatorship and a machete, but that's an emergency situation. Right,
exactly. That's a dire straits situation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I don't know why this is in this note, but oh no, I know why, because I kind of put these scenes together. But when she leaves and they're kind of locking up everything and blah blah, right? And this is kind of while hold on a second. Okay, yeah. This is kind of while Rick is about to leave off and have that Daryl arc, but they're packing up all the stuff because the Savers are gone and blah blah blah, and they're going back to the kingdom. They're going back to, I don't know if they're going back to Oceanside, but they could be going to the old camp again. But then the Savers kind of come out from the woodwork.
Right.
Yeah. And like the first thing, it's like I mentioned, this is what kind of brought me back to the guy hanging from the tree. Is like Jed comes out and he's leading the pack, and he's saying, Alden wasn't as quick as you, to Carol. And so like now I'm starting to think like, okay, so he got his weapon from Alden. Alden went back to see if he could like talk sense into them. Obviously he couldn't.
Right.
But now I'm wondering, because I don't see him, I don't know if I see him in any future scenes, but are we wondering if could he be dead? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think he has billing, right?
Yeah. I don't think he's dead.
No.
I think he is.
Actually, I can even confirm that, because when he had his panel at Walker Stalker, he was talking about how he signed a contract, and he's actually going to be getting Callum McAuliffe, the guy that plays Alden, who's Scottish, by the way, and his accent is insane. It's insane. He sounds nothing like his character.
That's crazy.
He sounds really sexy. So, like you hear him on the show, and he sounds like some dude from Boston. Like he sounds like that.
Yeah, he does actually sound like somebody from Boston. That's funny.
But in real life, he's like, "Hey, I'm Callum McAuliffe. I kind of sound like a young James Bond." Like he sounds like that. It's crazy.
That's really funny.
Yeah, you have to listen to it.
I can't even imagine it.
Yeah. Well, of course, I was gonna go down the street, and it's really good.
So soft spoken.
Yeah, it's very smooth, and I have a deeper register for some reason. He talks like this. I don't know what I'm gonna do next, but I'm gonna talk like this. So he just so whimsical, like sing-songy.
How odd.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine it. No, I can't even imagine it. So strange.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway.
Fascinating.
So he has a contract. So yeah, we went on a I just got, I got a little hot under the collar. So so that's the thing. So he has billing. He's getting a title, on the show. He's getting a credit in the title sequence and stuff like that. So yeah, it looks like he's being around, but like, what's the state of him? And now that we have the time jump, how do you resolve that too? So I don't know. Obviously we saw this when we didn't see the next episode, and I forgot about the panel, and so anyway, this is just my excuse to talk about his voice. So you're welcome, I think.
There you go.
One thing I noticed about that scene, though, because it kind of happens really fast, is that Carol's trying to keep her cool. She's taking Jed down, but then other saviors come up on the rear, and she looks like she's trying to give up. But the one thing I notice is that Carol is the one that screams no at the end of that scene. And it looks to me that Oceanside shot first, because they saw Regina coming out from the rear. Like hard and fast with that cane action, but fast nonetheless. So, yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah. I mean, of course, the best defense is a good offense, I guess. But Carol was trying really, really hard to kind of keep these people from killing themselves. And, oh, man.
Yeah. It's pretty nuts. It's intense.
Yeah, very, very. And again, like the beginning of the episode kind of starts out pretty steady, but the rest of the episode is like in real time takes like a matter of not even 30 minutes, 40 minutes in real life. Not even.
Yeah.
And while all of this is going on, Daryl and Rick are in this hole.
Right.
And Maggie's trying to get to Alexandria. And while you're watching the episode, you're wondering, okay, how long does it take Maggie to get to Alexandria? But the truth of the matter is, when you do the kind of real physical math, like it's really just a matter of minutes. So of course it's going to take her a long time. You really don't even see her I don't even think you get a glimpse of her even coming close to Alexandria until the next episode, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. You don't.
Where she starts to see like what Michonne's done. So it kind of validates the passage of time. So so Rachel from Oceanside, the one that Tara gives the middle finger to, doesn't relay the message. So Alexander doesn't know that Maggie's coming.
Right.
And while Rick exits his tent, Daryl offers to take him to Alexandria because he knows Maggie's coming, right? But I called it, didn't I?
Yeah, he basically was just distracting him.
Yep, taking him somewhere else. And it results in them falling into a sinkhole. Obviously not his intention, but you get him into the situation, and this is basically the centerpiece of the episode. I mean, this is the big scene that they needed to have. And they're no stranger to these kinds of encounters, but they always kind of end up with no resolution. Like, if you remember, one of the biggest scenes that we had last season was the big fight scene with the helicopter eventually flying overhead to kind of break them up. The first time we see it's the second time we see the helicopter in that episode, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the first time was at the end of season 7 or the beginning of season 8? I can't remember.
Yeah, gosh, I don't remember.
I remember we lost our minds when we saw this. Like,
right.
What is that? Who is in there? Heath? What?
I know, seriously.
Heath got help? What? PPP. So yeah, and so it was like, I think I remember I called it the like Captain America Civil War fight between Daryl and Rick,
right?
Like Captain America versus Iron Man or something, and we get it again. We get this again, but like with more of a resolution. Like at the end of that last scene, and they threw some blows too. Like you don't really get much of a resolution. They kind of agree that they're brothers, but at the same time, it's like Daryl ends up doing what he does anyway. He crashes the garbage truck into Sanctuary and all that stuff, and Rick tries to hold it together. He does the hard work of going to the Heapsters, and they end up leaving. So in this one, you do get more of a resolution. They're really giving each other the business, and Rick is really finally letting on the reasons why he is steadfast. Even though he admits to Carol that he wakes up every morning wanting to kill everybody, he remembers Carl and his what he wanted and what his and he was right. Like Carl was right. This is the way to go. Life is precious. I think of everybody every morning. And he lets on a little bit more with Daryl that like, I think of every single person,
right?
That's come this far, and it just can't be about avenging this one and that one and that one and that one. There's got to be more than this, So,
yeah.
So did that nudge you in any direction?
In terms of,
Like, I mean, until he kind of let on a little bit more about what he was thinking, I could easily see somebody going like, okay, Rick, stop being a puss or something like that. Just
I mean,
kill
it's a
Negan.
stretch to be so idealistic.
Exactly.
Like, I
That's all
understand
I'm
that,
saying.
yeah, it's a bit of a stretch to expect people to turn the other cheek.
Yeah, like even on like a surface level, just looking at the show, it's like, okay, Rick, you chewed this dude's ear off and you totally took down people in the most savage of ways. Do you remember the Ricktatorship? So
Right,
I could
exactly.
easily see a lot of people being like, I don't buy this for 1 second. But then when you start to hear the reasons, it's like they're letting it out like compressed air. It's just like,
Yeah,
and you get these little whiffs of like what he goes through to kind of stay on this path. And it's kind of interesting,
yeah, no, it's true. That is very true.
And so I buy it more, like I'm already on board because I'm Dave, but they need to have this sort of thing to kind of get people to be like, yeah, okay. I mean, you're right. And then when he kind of breaks down, Carl, I can't let it go. Like you get emotional because he's getting emotional. It's like, what else was this for otherwise? Like why else would I let him live if not for to kind of end this, to end the violence. But Daryl doesn't pull punches, man. Like, but he does it in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
just go through it.
He was very frank. He just tells them how it is. And I think Rick needs to hear that. He needs to hear from his friend, like, your mission in trying to save everybody isn't doing justice to Carl's memory or Abraham or Glenn or Sasha or any of them. It's not like, and he just tries to tell him, it's like, you got to let that dream go. Like, just let it go.
Right. He says one thing in specific about that. He says something about, I had it in my head just now and I just forgot. If it wasn't for Glenn, you wouldn't even be here. Like you wouldn't have found your son. I wouldn't have found you. So like, how can you forget that? That was a really good point. And I hadn't even thought of that. Like if Glenn hadn't come around, he wouldn't have gotten out of that tank situation, right?
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Look at a dumbass goes under a tank.
No, he would have been stuck.
Yeah. Well, he would have been dead.
Yeah, pretty much.
But Rick comes right back and he says like, oh, but you spared Dwight after he killed Denise, locked you up, tortured you. So what about that? And screwing him, taking his crossbow, his jacket, his motorcycle also, I think. Yeah, he took his everything. He took on his identity practically. But I could see how Daryl could wave that off. He's tougher than that shit. But sparing Dwight, that was something though, because he could have easily not. I mean, after everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and one other thing, Rick, the words Rick used when he was telling Daryl, Carl can't die. Carl can't die for nothing. Like Carl died for nothing. Those are the exact words that Negan used when he was choking on his own blood.
Right. Yeah.
Carl died for nothing, and boom. But I just love how those were the exact words.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah. So what do you think about let Carl go? Is that like, I
don't think it's like letting Carl go. It's like, let go of this like mission of like creating like an ideal world, like because Carl wanted that. An ideal world doesn't exist.
Do you agree with that? Because part of me couldn't let it go. I just I wouldn't be able to.
I mean, don't let go of the memory of your son, but don't try to build a monument to something that doesn't exist anymore.
Maybe it's like a Moses situation. Like if you think about it, like obviously we can move towards that goal, but maybe you're not the one that gets to do it. You
can try to move towards that goal, but I don't think that an ideal community where everybody gets along is feasible. It's not feasible without it being an apocalypse. Like, man, possible during an apocalypse. Like, it's a stretch.
I think it's more feasible in the apocalypse. I mean, like-minded people, right? But,
right.
Like if you think about it with the rest, and it's kind of to Rick's point. It's kind of like when the rest of the world is. And this is true in wartime as well. Like, have you noticed that like when there's a war going on, like a real war, not like these fake wars that we're fighting, but like a world war, like everybody kind of drops their own mental health issues and whatever it is, and they rally and they do what they need to do. They don't think about their own own problems, but like in peacetime, everybody needs a therapist. Everybody's doing their thing to kind of find purpose. Now that there's nothing, like no singular focus, people look at themselves and they look at their life's purpose and they realize they don't have one. And so like my mom and I used to have these conversations, by the way, like when I was younger, because my mom escaped from Syria when she was 20 to America. She told me this whole thing. I didn't know the extent of how she escaped Syria until like the last 10 years. And like I've gotten bits and pieces along the way. Like she went to she got smuggled by this one dude, and they went to Lebanon, and the thing dropped her off in the square, and they took her to the synagogue in the middle of the night. And then they had to go to the airport, and they had to hide in a meat truck. And then it's this whole thing. It's crazy. They had to fly to France, to fly back to Israel. And it's the whole thing. And the end of the story is like we talked about, like, because the whole context of that is that she was trying to tell me, like, you guys, you don't have purpose. And, it's like, when I was your age, I had to take care of my brother and sister and blah, blah, blah. And I use the argument, I'm like, well, you had to deal with what you had to deal with. Like, I don't, because of you. Thank you. But like, now we have our own problems, because in those times, it's kind of like you have, you have this thing that you need to do, and it kind of keeps you on the straight and narrow. And when you don't, and you have all the freedom in the world, you have choices now. And now you can look at yourself. Now you have self-reflection. So the whole thing is kind of like, to kind of compare it to the show, it's kind of like, when you start to realize who the real enemy is, like, food, lack of food, the environment, walkers, natural disasters, lack of resources, stuff like that. Those are your enemies. And so that should be enough to kind of keep people together. But then, it's kind of like, it's not enough. And then we start hanging Gregories.
and
getting drunk and hitting and knocking babies out of strollers.
Yeah, so, it gets ugly.
Gets ugly out there. So it's kind of like I could see why Rick wouldn't let it go, because it's kind of like, I wouldn't, but I could easily see this as being like, maybe it's not supposed to be you, and maybe it should be like you said. Maybe Maggie is supposed to lead the charge. Maybe you should be leading that, right? And then maybe you hand it off to Michonne because she has a charter idea, and maybe that's the way we're supposed to go. Maybe you need to take a backseat and Daryl kind of says that, he says, I never asked you to follow me. Like Rick says this, by the way. And then Daryl says, I know. And maybe you should have. Like this whole time, you never asked anybody to follow you, but you maybe should have. Maybe you should have asked everybody else what they think. So, it does this little ping pong back and forth. It's just so great.
Yeah, no, it is.
It's like every note hits.
Stellar acting too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And like measured. It wasn't like a screaming match too. Like it was just this, like, Daryl was just kind of like keyed in. He was like, I get it, man. Rick's the one kind of losing a little bit, but he's like, I know what you're going through. I know why you're doing this. And that's kind of why I didn't fight you earlier. Cause I know it's about your son. Yeah. And it kind of surprises, it kind of takes you out of nowhere, because you don't really, when you think about Daryl, does he grab you as kind of like a guy with wisdom per se? Like,
I think he has insight. He just doesn't express it very much, but I think it's there.
But like gut reaction, like when you think of Daryl, do you think like a wise person? Like it doesn't really occur to me, at least. Like you don't really think about, oh, he's the guy. He's like the Herschel. No. That's what I mean. Like gut reaction.
Like yeah.
On the surface, like between grunting and snorting.
Yeah. No, definitely not.
And especially when we first meet him.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, no, you definitely don't think of him in that respect, for sure.
Right. And so when you give him these lines, Angela Kang,
it's great.
You get that depth. I mean, I was kind of angry with him like a couple of episodes ago. It was like him being righteous but not really doing anything about it. And then he kind of now I get it. I'm like, okay, I understand now, like, why he wouldn't move to do anything more than, like, because he didn't want to rock the boat. He knows why Rick's doing this. And it's like, what can I do?
Right.
Oh, another thing, Daryl, while they're fighting, the one thing that Rick doesn't know about is that Oceanside killed a rat.
Right.
And killed all those saviors. And Daryl kind of lets on, and I have to admit that there could have been a little bit more punch to him admitting this, like, but he admits that he couldn't live with keeping that secret. So I felt like he could have expressed that a little bit better. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I couldn't live with that secret anymore. I wasn't stupid and let that slip. I just wanted you to know, like,
right. Yeah, he needed to let him know.
Yeah,
like, hey, this is what happened.
Yeah, and I think the acting on that, the way they could have figured that out a little bit better on that one. It's just such a minor critique, but like in the grand scheme of things, but it's kind of like I'm trying to keep it together too. Like I can't live with this, and you know what I mean. So
yeah,
and then obviously. The perfect scene, brother, take my hand. Okay. All right. It's good. I know. Moving along.
Yeah, no, I mean, it had to be there,
Yeah, of course. But it's just you don't have to go through that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, yeah. I don't really want to. Oh, it's funny. Okay. So I wanted to ask this when we were going to do it last week, but we kind of do understand. We didn't really understand at the time, but I wanted to ask you: is he depressed? And we kind of see that in the last episode, like he's not doing well.
No, he's broken. He truly is breaking.
Yeah, and I want to raise my hand and say I called it, but I can't because we couldn't do it.
Yeah. But he's breaking. It's sad. Sad to see.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing that I can ask, because it isn't 100% clear, but is it? Do you think part of the reason, other than the stuff he says out loud, is because of the weight of what he's done? Like, is there like some sort of remorse there?
I think it's just solitary confinement and being alone with your thoughts and having to confront like the things that you miss. I don't know if he's necessarily remorseful. I don't know if I would say remorseful.
Okay. No, that's fair too. And that's why I asked, because it's kind of like, it's one thing to kind of like be depressed and remorseful and being alone with your thoughts, because but I can hear what you're saying, because the one thing that I know is, and this is kind of what you see with Michonne, is that she doesn't know what to do with that part of herself. There's like that PTSD kind of thing, obsessive compulsion kind of thing going on here, because she needs to kind of keep herself sharp, because there's that, you never know who's going to get you. So I might as well get them first or something like that, So just imagine how Negan's feeling. Like his whole thing was managing people, like, and now he can't even manage himself.
Yeah. It's true.
So where does all that go? Right.
I mean, it's devastating. He's a broken man.
Yeah. Idle hands.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad. It's sad to see.
Yeah. I mean, you get more of that in the episode prior. I mean, the Sunday's episode, for sure. It's not entirely clear at the time, because he's kind of dealing out some big punches to Michonne that you clearly see affect her.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, the words that I used when I was writing down my notes was like, he's weaponizing hard truth. But like things like that he mentioned. But did he mention the whole cancer thing? Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, on this episode, that's right. His wife having cancer, etc. Now, did he do that with Gabriel? I think he did mention that his wife was sick.
He mentioned being married, but I don't think he went into the cancer.
I think he mentioned that he was unfaithful to her, right?
Yes.
Okay. So he didn't mention that she was sick, but so that's a little bit more. And it's weird, like I said, weaponizing hard truth. It's like he's using his own truth to kind of break down a wall in order to kind of wheedle his way in. He's not afraid of using himself for ammo.
Yeah.
And like the thing he said about Andre, the kid that died, it's harsh. I mean, it's like it kind of took me to kind of like where you were saying, like, don't go for my kids. That's the jugular, baby, and I'll like pounce back, and Michonne does. And so Michonne does say that they're not the same. Like, right. You can see though how they are in a way though. Oh man, and then the self-harm at the end. Ugh.
Yeah, that was painful to watch.
Yeah, that was creepy too, a little, wasn't it?
I just thought it was so sad. I was like, this is a broken man.
Yeah. Okay, so the last thing really, so we don't even need the whole 25 minutes. I mean, we could go further, but why no? Father Gabriel and Anne. This is kind of like the last few scenes before the big guy. that whole thing was kind of messy a little bit. That whole
Well,
scene.
with Jadis and Gabriel.
Yeah, it's like two scenes, but like the whole beginning scene and how the walker she brings out to kind of
Yeah.
make him an A, by the way. The walker looking like the organist a little.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Stuff.
Having a resemblance.
Yeah. Like, I mean, does it strike you that maybe there's a little bit of you could have believed me and also, oh, so you want your organist back? Oh, how about this? Like, you know, I'm
I think there might be an element of that. Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, she's unhinged.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely could see her doing something like that. But, you know, Gabriel appeals to her better self and luckily, like, ends up being able to save himself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know. I guess, yeah, appealing to her better nature. I guess maybe. I just think Father Gabriel's just really good at kind of making it really hard to kill him. Like, it's like, in a weird way, it's like the good version of Gregory.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I can see that.
Because it's just really interesting the way he's able to kind of like, look, if you kill me, blah 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 blah, you're killing the better part of you.
Right, yeah.
Kind of thing. And it really does kind of get you though too, because you're like, I mean, oh come on, you're gonna kill him after that, really?
Yeah, no, exactly.
But,
so it worked though.
Yeah, it totally worked. But you know, obviously knocks him out. Leaves the note. You know, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go slow, go together. And I need to go fast.
Yeah, if you want to go farther, go together.
Yeah. Do you think she made the right decision though, in just kind of bolting?
Yeah, okay. I think so. I think she did. I mean, it would have been
the mother of all bunkers.
Yeah, and I mean, it's Gabriel wasn't about to just go and leave. So. With her, so then it's
That's
like, what is he gonna do?
I mean,
like,
she could stick around. I mean, come on. Lightning round. we gotta bring this a little closer to home.
Yeah.
Kids out of the equation because that's not fair. But but if that was you and Eddie, and you know you had a little fight.
I mean, I don't think you can compare it though.
No, you can't. It's ridiculous. But you know,
I think it's justified. I mean, if you have somebody who's not willing to kind of like, Gabriel made his point known that he's not going anywhere, and she obviously has connections to this organization that she seems to know very well has resources.
Or knows they're like around at least, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Well, she knows the resources that they have at their disposal. She knows like, and we see it more in the next episode in terms of like helping Rick. Like she knows that they have the capability to be able to help a very injured Rick. So she knows.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's been her end game throughout the time that we've known her, how to get to, you know, to this community, because she knows. It's established that she seems pretty sure that she knows everything that they have available to them, which is far more than, you know, Alexandria or Hilltop or Kingdom. Any of them could have. Like it's beyond any of that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's just well beyond. But like we don't know like if she's not obviously not traveling around with them, so you don't really know. Like you don't know what she doesn't. I don't even think she knows what they're capable of. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. She may not, but she knows enough, I guess.
Yeah, she knows exactly what they want at the very least, and and they have been bringing her shit. Like I seem to recall that. I mean, and Simon hits on that. He's like, I don't know how you guys are just like managing to keep yourselves afloat.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of the resources that they were giving the saviors were provided to them by these people.
Yeah.
I guess, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, all they would need to do is just like plant it somewhere they haven't been before, tell Jadis where it is and be like, okay, why don't you guys try going here? And then they find all this stuff. So I don't know. Just thinking out loud because like you don't really know the extent of how deep she's in, but it's obvious that like it's an adversarial kind of thing going on.
Yep.
Because she's not exactly in their fold.
No.
So I don't know.
No, it's true. She's not totally in their fold.
Right. And I don't think it's one of those things where they know her and they've expelled her or something like that. Like she stumbled upon them somehow and knows what they want and knows how to survive, or, you know, or get what she needs to survive or whatever.
Yeah.
The one thing that, because I know you got to go soon, but the one thing that about that about the whole scene was kind of like when the whole Walker thing came out, and then he keeps referring to her as Anne. I just suddenly had this weird flash to an ex-girlfriend, and I was like, oh, he says like, I know you, Anne, and I'm like, oh my god, I wrote a song that was named that.
That's crazy.
Until I grew sense and said, how about I don't? And
that's crazy.
It was kind of like that, like she was kind of angry at me all the time, and you know, she always brought up my ex-girlfriends.
That's crazy.
And I kind of got a shudder. I got the chills a little bit. I'm like, I'm not going.
You brought back memories.
Yeah, bad memories. Very bad, awful. Like almost feeding me to the wolves, kind of.
Oh,
actually, practically feeding me to the wolves. Kind of memories.
Not good.
No, not at all. Anger issues, lots of them. So
oh boy.
There you go. So that pretty much covers it. Like the only thing that we really need to do is really, I mean, I would say go over the sneak peeks, but that makes no sense. But
well, I mean, there is the end when Rick gets impaled.
Right. That's right. Yeah, when Rick gets impaled, that's it.
It's kind of like the biggest. I mean, not the biggest, but kind of like
right. But to explain that scene, even like because of the firefight in the bridge camp, it drew both Tybalt and Cordelia. Is it Cordelia? Yeah. I think that's what it was called. Yes, Cordelia. So both of those herds kind of vectored in on the camp, and had Rick not shown up and tried to steer them away, it would have overrun the camp. And at first he wasn't going to. Oh, actually, we don't really get that far. I mean, like you get that scene where he parts with Daryl.
Yes,
and he's like still on about like keeping the bridge around.
Right.
Like the moron. Even I was kind of like, dude, give it up. Yeah, it's all right.
And you can tell Daryl wants to tell him that, but he's just sort of resigns himself, and he's just like, okay, fine, be safe.
Yeah. So when he said be safe, I
was like, okay, and this is the last time that these guys are ever going to see each other.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I'm trying to think to myself, like, I felt like Rick has said this to him at some point, and I can't remember when, and I was going to research when, and I just wanted to bring that scene up or something. I just couldn't find it. But if you, I just
feel like a lot of times, like, these scenes have happened before where it's like, okay, and this is the last time these characters are ever going to see each other again. Like when Glenn and Maggie were together, and he went off to I think Daryl went off, and so Glenn went off to try and find him, and he sees Maggie in the rear view mirror, and it's like, and this is the last time that these two are going to be together. Yeah. Like you can just know when it's like, nope.
Was it the Nicholas scene, or like I can't remember? Or
no, it was the episode before Negan is introduced.
Yeah. Ugh.
And it's like, yep, they're not going to see each other again. Like you can just tell.
Except until that scene on the bridge.
Exactly. Except when they're on the bridge, that's basically it. It's like, that's it.
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable how the episode we just covered, episode 4 and episode 5, they just kind of, in real time, it's literally kind of the same episode, but like, because of all the stuff that's going on in the dream sequences, it's kind of like, it makes it last so much longer than what it is in real time. Which is kind of like a saving grace for us, because it allows us to kind of cover, it makes it okay to cover these episodes one at a time, because it does feel like the same episode. So there's
it's all
kind
part of the same narrative.
Yeah.
Same background.
Like in the same kind of, we're still in the same kind of sphere and headspace and stuff like that. So, but
exactly.
Yeah, but what we're going to do here, and we'll be a lot better prepared for this tomorrow, is we're going to stop right here, and we're going to publish this episode, and we'll come back tomorrow. We'll be fresher as daisies, or as Cherokee roses. What's good about the next episode is that we don't really need to go that much more deep, because the episode kind of speaks for itself in many ways, but there are things that we could definitely talk about, because there's the people that come back to us. And this will make for like some shorter episodes to kind of lead us into all the craziness we find out, mostly in the sneak peeks, because of this time jump that's going to be happening come episode 6. So we're going to leave it there, and I bid you fellas adieu until tomorrow. We'll try to broadcast live, I guess, like around 9 or 10? 10 again?
I think so.
Same bat time, same bat channel?
There you have it.
Or same bat channels, like Instagram, YouTube. In the meantime, like our shit. Subscribe, like, share, do all that stuff. We love you. And I guess we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Bye, guys.